Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to take a look at the Abdo Framework and hopefully get you on board as to what's been going on in class and how we can use this Abdo Framework as kind of a starting point as you go on throughout the rest of the semester. So without any further ado, let's just jump online, and if you're at Gamify EDU, you can find the Abdo Framework under Quest 6. So if you can just click on this, you're going to get a drop or a pop-up menu here, and you can save that file. So I'm going to save this guy just right over to my desktop for right now. Alright, so I got a file, Abdo zip, sitting here on my desktop. What happens is once I double click it, I'm on a Mac right now, it's going to spit out a little bit of a file right here. So this Abdo is what we're going to be working from. What's really nice is you can just take this zip, you can double click it again, it's going to spit out another file. So think about this Abdo framework as a place for you to experiment, to play with, to see a fully developed website so you can really understand how it ticks, and you can kind of do some experimentation with the CSS, changing some values and being able to kind of really see how it works, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trash this one right now, and we're going to just work in this base Abdo, the very first one I pulled out. So if you go into the framework itself, you're going to see that it has a few files. So the very first file has this index file, and that's, as we know, the very first file it's going to hit when you get in the file, so think of that as your home page. And then it has two other files. It has page and quests, and those are the other two HTML files that are in there. And then it has three CSS files. So we got a reset CSS, we got a style CSS, and then we have this media queries. So the media queries is going to make it so it's responsive, so when you're on different devices it will adapt to those sizes. Alright, so let's take a look at what's going on in each of these files. I did want to mention also we did have this image folder, so IMG is what I used. If you take a look in there, it has a skull in there, and I just had a banner PNG. It actually isn't being used in the framework, but I just wanted to throw that in there to kind of show you that's where you'd want to put all your images. Okay, so first things first, let's go and take a look at this index.html. So taking a look in Text Wrangler, you're going to see right off the bat it actually has a lot of stuff going on inside of it, or at least there's a lot of text, and a lot of the text, the ones that you're seeing in black, is just the lorem ipsum. So it's actually just showing a few of the places that you actually would want to change it and put in some real text. But really what we want to take a look at is up at the top. You'll know that we're working in HTML5. And then if you start looking through, I'm not going to go through every single tag here because we already looked through most of it and we kind of figured it out. But you will notice that there are three links, and those are the three links that go to our various CSS sheets. So you got a reset CSS that's going to kind of reset all the values to a default value so we can have a lot of good cross-browser compatibility. We're also going in and pulling in our main style sheet. And then finally we have our media queries. And media queries are a way for us to make a responsive site, so that at specific resolutions we can change what's going on with various divs. Now there's a lot of other stuff within this site. For example, we have this meta tag, the viewport. It has a lot of information in here, but basically if you take a look at this line, this is what's going to make everything responsive. So if you didn't have this meta line in there, you really couldn't make a responsive site. So realistically you have this meta line and this link line to this media queries, and these are where all the queries are actually happening. So these are two important things to have if you're going to be making a responsive site. But further on down, let's go ahead and skip out of this area. There's a few other scripts in here. I'm pulling in a font, for example, from Google. So there's a Google font, Roboto. I actually like the font a lot, so I went and used that. And then we have this shim or shiv, as you call it. And basically what this is a conditional. So if we're in an IE browser and it's IE 9 or below, what it's going to do is going to run this code, and it's going to actually bring up all the tags so that we can use it with HTML5. But that aside, let's jump into the framework and really figure out what's going on. So once you jump into here, you're going to see a few things. The very first thing you're going to see is that in our body tag we have an attribute, and that attribute is ID home. So this entire thing is somewhat of a wrapper in saying this is our home area, and we'll work with that in just a moment and kind of show you what some of the styles are being pulled in here. But as you start going down, you're going to see different areas or different sections. So there's a big wrapper. This wrapper really just holds all of our content. You see there's a comment in the HTML at the very bottom that really tells us that. But then if you start kind of looking at where things start and stop, at these tags start and stop, you're going to see that it's broken into sections. So we have this header section, and in this header section you'll see there's our H1, and this H1 is important in that it has our title, it has our logo, so you could put your image in there. In this instance I went ahead and I just made 2 classes so I could split this up and put 2 different color schemes in here. So I got this AB and then the DO. And if you go to the next line, this is our slogan, our tagline, whatever you want to call it. And then right underneath that, you're going to see that we have your nav. So let's go and just take a look at the other end, on the front end, see what's going on here. So here we go. Here's that Abdo that we were taking a look at in the code. Here is that slogan or that tagline. And finally, we're at our nav. Now, what's really driving these styles is the CSS sheet. So realistically, if you look at that code, it's pretty simple. You could probably code this up. But we'll take a look in a moment and see what it looks like in the CSS sheet. I just want to kind of go through the rest of this. So then we have a different section that's kind of broken off. So you see at the top we had our header, now we're at our section, and inside this section it's basically the bulk of our content. So we do have a content area, and inside that content area you do have a secondary section, so you can kind of break it up into pieces. So there's a section that I will call project, and this project is going to have some information, maybe a call to action, and then off to the side I made an aside so that you can go ahead and put a picture, put some more information, and this is really just to illustrate that you can kind of break things up into pieces. We're going to really get into the layout design pretty soon, so don't worry too much about how this aside goes off to the right hand side and this other section, this project side, goes to the left. We'll get into that and what really drives that. But after you take a look at this big section here, one of the last areas that you're going to find is, well, first of all, there is an HR in there, kind of breaks off the content. So if we take a look in here, here's the break in the content, or at least that HR, and then at the very bottom we have just a little bit more content that you might want to put in your page. So just a real good example of how you could break up a page. One of the last things that you'll see in here is a footer. So HTML5 introduces some really cool elements, like the one called footer, the one called section, the one called aside, also header and nav. Those are great. What had happened a lot of the time before is, before those were in HTML5, people would be creating classes with those exact name, or IDs with those exact name, and so it would just say like something like div space ID equals header. It was used so commonly that it just became part of what HTML was, because there's those different breakdowns within each of the documents. So that gives you a little bit more context to what's going on here. Relatively simple at this stage. So if you go ahead and adjust the size, you're going to notice that at a specific pixel ratio, you're going to get this Abdo skull, and it's going to jump down. That's because those media queries are taking effect, and they're actually making this adapt. Now, before we get on too far, let me explain kind of what's going on with this nav here. So really, this is just an unordered list, and it's styled in such a way that it turns into a nav bar. So if you take a look at some of my prior tutorials, I did explain basically how you can create a nav bar. That's in our lists articles on Gamify EDU. But what we want to take a look at here is if I click on page, and I'm not going to quite click on it all the way yet, but you're going to notice up in this URL it's saying we're on the index page right now, so you know where you're at. So if you click on page, it's going to go over to the page HTML. So I just linked it in the code. We can take a look at that real quick where it's linked out. So here we are saying, hey, we're in the index file, click on page and go over to page. Real simple kind of link navigation. And if you took a look at our file structure, let's go take a look at that real quick. You're going to notice that page is right next to index, and then there's also another one called quest. So what I was hoping that you would do is link all of that initial information that you had on Gamify EDU, all those quests, that list order, and actually put it into this quest file. So let's just make sure we're clear on that. So let's say I am on Gamify EDU. So let me go there right now, and I'm going to go to my little demo area. So I have my area. This is what we had. Real simple. Quest 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to probably have it on a little bit further down. And then you have a breakdown of what you did in each of those quests. So if you looked at the code on this, I'm going to view the source, relatively simple stuff. You just have an ordered list all the way down to the bottom within that body. Well, what you can do is you can forklift this, and when I say forklift, that means just right click and copy just that whole element that has all those links in it. We're going to get back to that in just a moment. So if I go back and I'm going to drop down into my quest file here, I'm going to go ahead and open that one up with Text Wrangler. Okay, so we're in Text Wrangler now. Let me just adjust the view for myself right now. I don't want to see those files off to the left. Okay, so if you look through your quest file, you're going to see a lot of the same setup. And actually up at the top, you're going to notice basically from header up, it's exactly the same as what we had before, and we're going to get to that in just a second. As you go a little bit further down, you're going to find that this is where that quest area comes into play. So we have it in an aside at this one. So really all you need to do is come to this aside, figure out where your UL, I actually had it as an OL in my list, but find where that starts, go and highlight it all the way to the bottom, go ahead and remove that information. So I went and just hit the delete key on my side. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste what I had in there before, and lo and behold, you've just put your quests that were in that little file right into the Abdo template. So I'm going to go ahead and file save this out. So you're not really having to think about creating this whole template at this point. You're just changing a few pieces. And now if I go back into Abdo, so we're back in Abdo here, I'm going to click on quests. And once we go over to the quest, you're going to notice that they look a little bit different, and that's partially because it's being driven by the CSS styles of this particular template. But if you took a look at it and you clicked on one of the styles here, or one of the links, you're actually going to go link out to those various areas that are potentially within your site. Now, I do have to explain something here. So if I went ahead and I'm going to go back into this Text Wrangler file, I did put a few absolute links in my objective area. So what can happen is if you copy and you paste that file that you had generated, the one that was on the on Gamify EDU, or at least that list structure that we were talking about before. I'm going to have to go back to it again real quick here. So if you're back here and you're copying and pasting this, you might have had some relative links going on. So you're going to be potentially having to change where some of those links go back in your code. So for example, if you were linking to Quest 3 and this file was sitting in an area that really couldn't get to that Quest 3 folder in the logical way, you're going to have to look at that link structure and figure out how you can adjust your links. If you have any questions with that, definitely check out the articles on links. Look in your book, you can figure out how links work. I mean, it's relatively simple once you jump in and you just kind of read what's going on. There's a lot of slashes that break up the link structure. For example here, you know that at the Gamify EDU root level, there is a folder called A. And inside of that folder A, there's a folder called Atom. Inside of the folder called Atom, there's a Quest 3. Inside of that Quest 3 folder, there's an objective. And that's all I really need to write in this link, because right when you get into this objective folder, there should be a file called index.html. So let's just go ahead and make sure this is true. So if I go into my FileZilla here, I'm in that A folder, I'm in the Atom folder. I'm going to go to Quest 3, there's my Quest 3, there's the objective folder I was talking about, and yep, there it is, there's my index.html file. So you can really see some of that structure up in this remote site directory. Now, from your perspective and your logins on your FTP, I haven't given you full access to my my drive here, so you're going to probably just have something that looks a little bit like this. You'd probably just have a /quest3 objective as you get through your folders here. And actually, when you log into your guys' root, you probably won't even see this. All you would see is just a /, and that indicates you're in your root folder. Okay, hopefully I haven't confused you or lost you too much. Back to the Abdo framework. I just wanted to show you a few things of how you could create another page, how you could really use the framework. Okay, so you kind of saw what it looked like by default. What if you needed to create a brand new page? I'm going to close out everything and I'm going to go right back to this default level. So we got a page in here, and if we just took a look at the page, see what it looks like. It's very simple. You got your navigation up in the top, you got just something that has a little header there, and then you have some content. very, very simple. Let's say you wanted to start iterating on this page, seeing what you could do with it, adding some more content in it. Well, it's fairly easy. You could do it on this page, but think of this page as a template. So here's that page right there. What I would do is I'd right click on it. Depending on your Mac or PC, you might have to do command click, do a few other things, but basically you want to get to this context menu and you want to be able to duplicate, or if you're in a PC environment, you can copy that file, and basically all you're wanting to do is just make a complete copy of that HTML file somehow and get it right into there. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this file, so I'll go ahead and do my little slow click, and I can say this is page 2, for example. We'll just call it page 2 in this instance. So for all intents and purposes at this point, page and page 2 are exactly the same. Let's go ahead and make them a little bit different and start working with this template. So if I go ahead and I open it in Text Wrangler, I'm going to make some quick changes. So up in the top in my title, I'm going to definitely put that this is page 2, so we know where we're at. A little bit further down, we can go in here, and this one says my page, so I might go my page 2. You're going to see that you have your paragraphs in here, has some information. So what you could do is you can go ahead and take out all the content within that content area. See how I'm leaving everything else in my template? So again, this is page 2, and I just took that paragraph out. I'm going to leave this H3 in there for a second. If I go ahead and I do a file save and we take a look at what's going on in this page 2, and the way that I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to run it right out of here. So I'll double click my page 2. We're in page 2. You notice I removed the paragraphs. One thing that you'll notice is it's not in your link structure. It's no longer in your nav. So if I clicked over to page, it's going to kick over just to my page. We're not in page 2. So how do you get the page 2 link in there? Well, you should be able to figure this one out. But what you're going to have to do in this instance, you're going to have to actually open each one of these pages. So I'm going to go to my index page, and I'm going to edit it with Text Wrangler, and I'm going to just start there. Let's say we wanted to put page 2 right after page 1. Very easily, I can just go in here. I'm going to copy this line of code. I'm going to paste it directly underneath it. So I know I name my page 2, so I'm going to put a 2 right in there, and then I'm going to put a 2 right in the content area, what I want to display in that menu. Now that I did this in the index file, I'm going to go ahead and copy that navigation structure, and I'm going to go through each page and paste that in there so I can update the navigation on all the pages. So I am going to save my index page. I'm going to go to my page and open that guy with Text Wrangler. And I'm going to put it right after page. And actually, I'm just going to copy this because I copied everything, and I'm going to paste it right over the top of it. That way my navigation is this exact same on every page. So go ahead and save that. Do the same thing for page 2. We will edit that guy, update the navigation, and then finally we'll do it for quests. Go. So now that I've gotten all the navigation updated, if I went to any single one of these files, doesn't matter, let's start with quests. Go into quests here. Now I'll go ahead and refresh this. I'm going to take a pause on that just a second. Okay, so what happened is I took a look at it. Actually, it wasn't working on the quest page, and I'm going to show you why it's not working in just a second. But actually, all the other pages is bringing that quest too. So this is a common mistake. I kind of screwed up on the quest area, and I scrolled down too far, and I overwrote the wrong area. I went down to this quest 2 at the bottom where I didn't really overwrite the right navigation area. So I found the right navigation. Gonna go ahead and copy and paste over that. Save that now. Now when I go back into it, if I go into my quest file, I shouldn't have to screw up. There we go. We got page 1, page 2, quest. So I easily was able to just duplicate a page and then update the navigation, and now it's in my link structure. So that's the very basics as to how I want you to start using Abdo. But let me give you a little bit of an extra tip on this one that I didn't really go over in class. That way you can start using the CSS a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and just close out everything here, close all these tabs, and you're going to see that you have actually a few style sheets in here. So we have the reset one that gets loaded first, Next we go to the styles. That actually has a bulk of the styles that are going in our sheet, and then our media queries. So real briefly, if you took a look at our reset here, let's go and take a look at it. Let's go straight into Text Wrangler and open it from there. Alright, there's our reset. Very simple. Reset actually pulls in every single element within the document and applies this declaration block to it. So very small file right there, not a lot to have to worry about. Next one we got up is our style sheet. So we will go into our styles. It's really crappy. I don't understand why I can't get it open in Text Wrangler. Here we go. Open file in Text Wrangler. That'll work. Like I said, this one has a bulk of everything that you're going to have in the sheet. So if you start like looking down in this list, you're going to see a lot of various styles in there. Some very interesting things that we can go over. I don't want to go through every style right now, but you're going to notice that there's a few things that you see in the HTML code that's pretty similar. So like an A tag, we've worked with this before in class. There's also something called an A hover. So what this is called like a pseudo class. So we're saying just in the normal A tags, it should look like this. But when you hover the A tag, it should look like this. And actually currently I've left it blank. So you can make it do what you want to do when you hover on that. There's a lot of different things within this sheet that you can start looking at. So if you look at your H1 through your H4 we have in here, you can see that there's a decrease in size as you go down, and we'll talk about what EMs do a little bit. Think about an EM almost like a percentage, if you will. You go down a little bit further in your sheet, you're going to start seeing some of the various areas, kind of what's driving the quest side of things, what's driving the footer. And then I do have this interesting button that I took from another framework that I work with called Zerb framework called Foundation 5. I found this great button here. So if we went to our home page, let's look at our index here, and let's just open that with Firefox. You're going to see this call to action button, and it's actually pretty snazzy. If you highlight it, it's going to change to orange and fade over to an orange. Realistically, this is just a link. So how this works is, if I'm in my index page, let's be real simple here. I'm in my Text Wrangler. What I can do is, let's get this view all set up. If I go down to where that link is, so you kind of scroll down, here is that link. All I had to do was add a class of a button. So if I went ahead and I'm going to delete this class, I'm going to just cut that out, save up the document. Let's see what it looks like in Firefox. So if I re-look at it, it's very simple. It's not a link, has no hover action. You saw that I didn't have that A hover set up, so the color won't even change at this point. So it's really just a simple link. If you click on it, it doesn't do anything. All I did was apply that class, and if you look at what's going on in that style sheet, pull up this style sheet again here, that you'll notice at the very bottom, if you put the class of button on a link, it's going to do all these various things. It's going to put the cursor to a pointer, it's going to change the line height to normal, put various paddings on there. If you read down this list, there's a lot of things that are being applied to it. And then it also has kind of a hover and a focus state when you hover over it. So this is a really great way to kind of build in a cool class that you can use over and over that you might want to put in your sheets. So if I go back and I'm going to edit this Text Wrangler here again, here's my call to action button. We kind of saw what it looked like generically, but if I went ahead and put that class of button back in there and I save it back up, I'm going to refresh. And there you go, you got your button all set up. So you're kind of creating components and creating various areas of your template that you want to start making some edits to. So what can you do in this template? Well, let's start thinking about some things you might want to do. Let's say you wanted to move your navigation above everything and you didn't want Abdo to be the first thing in your site. Well, one thing that you might do to start experimenting is you could go into your template. So here we go, start figuring out where things are. Well, here's the nav tag. I wonder what happens if I just cut this nav tag and I actually put it above everything. So I'm gonna cut that out. I'm gonna put it above my H1. Let's just see what happens. So there's my nav. I've dropped it in there. It's right above the H1. Maybe I'll put a tab over here, make sure everything's kind of lining up good. So I'll hit File, Save, and let's run that file now. Here I am in my index, and wow, now we have the navigation above Abdo. So we made a quick change. Now, this is where you start getting a little bit more granular in HTML, because you're going to notice now there's a little space up here. Well, you probably don't want that space, so you're going to have to go in there, figure out what's driving that space. There's always the way to kind of inspect elements by right-clicking, inspecting the elements, figuring out what's making that space happen, so you can kind of use your tools that you have at your disposal to kind of figure that stuff out. I'm not going to do it in this instance, but these are the little things that you want to work your way through. So if you went in, you can easily change the content, but then you can add more content, add more dynamicness to this. So I want you to experiment. Abdo is a cool little framework. There's actually a lot better frameworks out there, I won't lie to you. For this is very, very, very simple. But simple enough that you could hopefully go in there and make some of your own edits. Feel free to use it. Feel free to kind of iterate on it, do whatever you feel like you need to in it. But just remember those simple things that we kind of went over at the beginning, that if you are kind of playing with it, that you could always spit out a new copy if you screw this one up. So I'm done with this one for the day. Throw that guy in the trash. I need a new one. I'm gonna double click Abdo, and boom, I got another Abdo to work on. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. Well, actually there is one thing I forgot to show you. So you got Abdo, you got everything ready to go. How do you put it on your FTP? Well, what you need to do is you gotta go to FileZilla. So here I am in FileZilla. Here's my Abdo folder. Well, I'm gonna open my Abdo folder so we can really kind of see this off to the side. So I got Abdo off to the side here. Pull this guy off to the side as well so we could really see it. So what we're going to do is we need to replace this index file with this index file. Now this index file has my quest, and I don't want to screw that up. I don't want to pull this file over and overwrite a lot of the work that I've already done. So on the server itself, I'm going to go to my index file, and I'm just going to right click on it, and I'm going to rename it, because I don't want to overwrite that file. And I could do something like my lists or something like that. So I know this is my index list, or I could even just call it list for now. Doesn't matter, as long as you take it away from a name that could potentially overwrite it. So looking at this list, there's nothing else in my directory that I would overwrite if I pulled these files over, so I know I'm good to go. So in my instance, I could actually highlight everything, and I can just drag this over to here, and I'm very careful to do it off in the white space. I don't want to drag it over to the top of a folder, because it would actually drop in Quest 8 or whatever folder I would drop it in. You want to drop it down here in the white, or over off to the right hand side in the white, as long as it's not over a folder area. And once I let go, it's going to add all those files right into your directory. So there we go. We got our index file in there. We got all those other CSS files. And again, you got your image folder that's going to sit up at the top. So before, you saw when I went over to Gamify EDU there, that when I went to A/Adam, it was going to my list of quests. But now when I go to it, if I refresh, it's going to go ahead and bring in my new template. So that's how you can really install that new template on your root directory. And then what I want you to do is your quest should then be valid. You can move those over. You just have to download that list file and kind of transplant it into this quest area, and then use this as your base now. So you have something that looks a little bit more pretty. I'm not going to be actually too picky as to what you do with Abdo. It was more of a way for you to experiment and start making it your own thing. So hopefully, again, this has been helpful for you. So if there's any questions, let me know. Go ahead and use Abdo. I might be updating the file for little things that I find here and there that I need to fix within the system, or feel free to fix them yourselves and go ahead and give it out to other people that might want to use it. Okay, thanks for checking in with me. Have a good one. Peace.